So your government name is Terri-Nichelle Bradley. We call you Terry. And you are founder and CEO of Brown Toy Box. Why toys?
Why toys? First of all, I'm a mom of 4 kids.
God bless you.
All adults now, but
right, amen.
I love that. But I just really wanted something, as when my kids were younger, there were always things that I wish that they had, right? And I wanted, really, in a nutshell, I wanted kids to be able to see themselves represented in play, right? Much bigger goals that we wanted to solve through my business, but really it was kind of just, disrupting the toy aisle.
Right.
We wanted to see some Black kids on the toy aisle, not just in packaging, but in products.
Right. Yeah, when I was growing up, because my last name is Bradley, I used to say maybe Milton Bradley is related so that I could get some cash or something. But as I got a little bit older, I recognized, I never saw myself on the toy, so I figured we probably weren't related. What has it been like, though, being a part of such a massive industry that has high barriers to entry?
It's been hard, but it's also been exhilarating. It's been fun. I love learning new things, and I'm learning new things every single minute. It's been, but it's also just been kind of cool to kind of trailblaze in different areas that I never see us represented, right? But I've also been welcomed in.
Oh, good.
So that's been really interesting because sometimes, as Black folks, we go in with our guard up, like they don't want us, that kind of thing, right? And I've really been welcomed in, and so it's been an interesting journey, and we're just beginning.
What's the worst thing that's happened to you as you've tried to enter the toy industry?
I think the worst is you don't know what you don't know. So we've burned through a lot of capital making mistakes, right? Because we just didn't know. And there was no one that, there was no example, and so there was no folks so I serve as that for a lot of people now.
I'm sure.
But I didn't have anybody in the toy industry, right, that I could go to and say, what is this or what is that? I think it's also been always having to kind of explain the why, right? Explain why this is important. Explain why Black children deserve to see themselves represented, not just in dolls, right? Because I do educational toys, right? So when people think about diversity in toys, they only think about dolls. Well, what about this doll? What about this? We don't do dolls. That's not what I'm talking about, right? Exactly. And so, I think it's just been, I feel like I've had to kind of fight to make people understand the why, but then even to get our people to support, and so I think that's been the biggest challenge.
So why not dolls?
Why not dolls? There's enough of them.
I know that's right.
Right, there's enough of them.
That was a loaded question. The last thing we need is more dolls. But you walk down a toy aisle, there's a lot of stuff. So,
there's a lot, right? Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. And I think, and what I say all the time, dolls are important, right? Yep. Like it's important. I love this conversation about little girls being able to see their hair texture. I think that's very important. But then my question is, but then what? Right. What else? Right. And so I think for us, it's been kind of interesting to kind of carve a space in the STEM space, right? We focus on 15 different STEAM themes. And truly, the ultimate goal for us is to disrupt generational poverty, right? The ultimate goal is for us to focus on these 15 different STEAM themes where Blacks make up less than 10% of the workforce. Right. So we can get kids exposed early and to have them confident about exploring those, and confident and excited about exploring those things. But in terms of like the toy aisle, it's just dolls. And so we said, no, we want to be in the educational space, right? And so what that does, though, is it presents a lot of other opportunities because not only can we now be in the toy aisle, in department stores and on, online retailers, but we can also be in schools. We can also work with after-school programs and youth serving organizations. But we want these kids to be able to pick this up, see these characters that are represented, or see these, we're doing replicas of HBCUs for constructor kids. Right. Like, we're like, where are ways that we can, black it up, right? And make sure that people really, really see themselves or do it in a way that's very unique, right? And so dolls were just not of interest. Now, we will have plush of the characters, because our first line, Dodisi Academy, Dodisi means curious in Swahili.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get kids to stay curious. We always asked, well, what about, like, can you do a plush, right? And so it's never going to be a focus on, like, hair.
Gotcha.
But the kids all have, like, little symbols that represent their different STEAM theme on their chest. And, you know, as we have a line of books coming out, you know, for early learners, we want them to have their plush and then their books, right?
Oh, I like that.
So that's going to be really cool.
I want a plush.
And those will be coming out Q1, so you will have a plush, right? You will get a plush for sure. But it's been something that I would have never expected. Like, when I go into certain rooms, sometimes I'm like, and I don't believe in what do they call it? Women say they feel like they shouldn't be in the room.
Oh, imposter syndrome.
I don't have that. See, I can't even think of the name of it, right? I can't even think of the name of it.
You black it up wherever you are.
I'm going to black it up wherever I am.
I love that,
right?
though.
And so, but I still sometimes am in awe, like, Terri, just 2 years ago, you were just struggling. You were just really fighting for people to understand what it is that you were trying to do, right? But it's, you know, but I'm very clear that without, you know, some helpful friends, I would not be here.
Right. Where'd your confidence come from?
Being broken. Yeah. I got my confidence from being broken down to nothing, really.
Yep.
And then building myself back up and knowing that emerging from that place,
Yep.
you know, I survived.
The Phoenix rose.
Yeah, the Phoenix rising, right? And so if I could survive that brokenness, I can do anything.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
like
where
that.
it comes from.
Well, nobody probably would have predicted you'd be in the toy business. So you talked about these 15 STEAM themes. Give me some of the themes.
Gosh, we have marine biology,
Oh,
we have
geez.
chemistry, we
Okay.
have coding, we have forensics, we've got robotics, like just there's so many. We've got architecture and engineering.
And do you know all those topics?
No, I don't know any of it. It's so funny because I don't know any of
you
them.
go, girl.
None. And people always assume that I was either a teacher
Right.
in my previous life. I was not, or that you know, that I was one of those fields. Right. So when we go into schools, I love to go into the elementary schools when we're doing different programs or, you know, doing giveaways and that kind of thing, because they're like, I'm going to be a marine biologist just like you. I don't have the heart to tell them kids.
Yeah, I don't even swim. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I swim enough to save my life.
Okay,
So there you go, right? But I don't have the heart to tell. I'm not a marine biologist, but they get so excited and inspired. That's like telling
Well,
kids.
they see it too.
Yeah,
They're like,
right?
oh, look, I see one. I can be one.
I see one, right?
Yeah.
But we always bring a Black person in that field
Gotcha.
into the classroom with us when we go in and do like these in-class field trips for the kids around the different theme, because we want them to hear from a Black person who has a backstory that's not too dissimilar from theirs.
Got it.
So they can say, oh, he started
Right.
in a community much like mine.
Yep.
You know, so for us, that school program is such an integral part of our business,
Yeah.
right? And I will never give that piece up.
That's cool.
You know, so we can hit the affluent moms with Target and Amazon and all the other places.
Right.
But I'm making sure that
Going
we get
into
those
the
kids
schools.
in those, you know, majority Black serving schools. Yeah.
It really bridges the gap of, yeah, I buy a toy, but it has no context. But when they say, if I see it, I
Yes,
can be it. And now they
absolutely.
can actually have a full-on conversation to say,
Absolutely.
like, don't do this or do this, or, hey, who knows, give me a call, whatever the
Absolutely.
case may be. Yeah.
Absolutely. And for us, the other piece of that that's really important is making sure that the parents understand the importance of STEM and STEAM.
Got it.
Because, you know, I always use my own parents as an example. Like, they used to always say, go to college. But they didn't go to college. So that's all I got was,
My
right,
mom did
go
the
to
same
college,
thing. I was
right?
like, how's it go? I don't know, but you better figure it out.
So my parents would tell me to go to college, but had no idea, no frame of reference, because they didn't go.
I
right?
love that. Go do it.
Go
How?
do
I don't
it,
know.
right?
Go talk
And
to
this is at
somebody.
the time, I'm old, so this is at the time where you had to mail away for catalogs, mail away for application. There was no online anything, right?
I'm with you.
You know,
I'm
so
with you.
so I'm like, okay, so then what? And then I'll be like, Mom, there's an application fee. You better ask your counselor for that, you know, that kind of thing, right? So they didn't really get it. So that takes me to my business where I'm like, what we understand is if we don't get the parents,
Yeah.
and it's not really, so this isn't our retail parent, but this is the parent from the schools
Cool,
when we go into
gotcha,
schools, right? If we
gotcha.
don't get those parents to really understand the value of STEAM exposure, STEAM equity in their schools,
Yeah.
all of that, then we'll never really get the kids, right? Because we need those parents to be willing to drive out to other places in the
Sure.
suburbs for these programs after school
Right.
and to do all these
Marine
different
biology,
things.
I got to go find a damn
I
ocean.
got to go find an ocean or go to the Georgia Aquarium or
Yes.
the whatever aquarium in your
Yeah.
town or whatever, right? And so we try to make it as accessible for them as it is for the kids.
Gotcha.
And, and consumable, right? Because if people start talking in all these like scientific terms and, all this, it's really, really very basic, right? And so I think we try to make it a lot more complicated than it is.
Yep.
And I think that's also a way, to keep people out of it.
Sure, it's a gatekeeper.
Right? Yeah, it's a gatekeeper.
You scare me, I won't do it.
You scare me out of it, right?
Yeah.
And so we want parents to be like, listen, we want to have these classes in my kids' school. My kids deserve these classes, and I'm going to advocate for my kids, and that's what we're really trying to do.
Nobody ever thought that a toy maker would talk about all these advocacy and classroom. How long have you been in business?
So I started in 2017,
Okay.
but kind of.
Okay.
Right? Like I started more of a conceptually in 2017. 2018, we started as a subscription box.
Okay.
And I knew immediately I hated the subscription box business. I was like, I do not want to do this. I hate
Why?
this. Well, one, it's a volume business,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So if you don't hit those volumes, you're just spending money.
Right.
And then two, it was just, I'm curating, I've always, I am a social entrepreneur.
Yes.
So I'm like, I want 60% of my box, but really I want 100% of my box to be from Black authors and makers. That did not work. That did not work.
That's a lot of product.
That's a lot of product.
Sure.
And when they were late, our boxes were late because I didn't have the capital to order, way in advance. So I'd be a month out, and it just, and we are not kind to each other online.
That's for
and
sure.
So I
blow you
got
up.
the business about that. So I was like, you know what? I want to go from a curator to a creator. And once I really felt like I understood the business and how to run a business, I relaunched the subscription box. Did that for a couple of years. And then during the pandemic, we were able to just kind of evolve. So what happened was a lot of schools were coming to us. So when the pandemic first started in March, everything got canceled, right? So everybody was trying to get technology, like laptops, hotspots, that kind of thing. And what they realized were the kids that we were serving in the schools weren't getting online. Right. The hotspots weren't strong enough for 5 kids or 4 kids in one household to be on. Their parents were the essential employees.
Gotcha.
They were out working.
Right.
And so they needed, something else. Right. So then folks started coming back to us, which we knew they would. You'll be back. Right. And they're like, we need something that we could put in these kids' hands.
Gotcha.
Something tactile. Right. And so they came to us for our subscription box. That allowed us to start prototyping for the actual toy. So to make that leap from being a curator to a creator.
I love that. But a customer-led journey.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, and a customer-funded journey.
There you go.
Right?
That's the best kind ever.
Exactly.
Best kind
And
ever.
so that's what allowed us to be able to do that. And so while we were testing out, I pitched Target. And
I just pitched them.
I pitched Target. Actually, what happened was I did the New Voices Target pitch. Didn't do great. I got 4th, which, if it's not first, you're last, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, but it was out of 10, so that wasn't horrible.
It wasn't great. It was like a C.
Okay.
It's like a C minus, right? And so I was like, whatever. But I took, listen, don't give me a name because I'm gonna write it down. And so I took notes of who was on the call, who were the judges, right? And then I saw, and then the next month, I think I reached out or something. And then the next month I saw that Supplier Diversity was having office hours. So I was like, I'm going to sign up for office hours. And so for Target. And so I did that. And from there, we would have conversations. I would send them decks. And then they had a group that was really working on Black guest experience.
Yep.
This was before they made the big announcement of, $2 billion commitment to Black community. And they're like, we think you're ready to pitch the toy team. I was like, okay. Melissa, I did not have a product yet.
Oh.
But I had concepts. I had a prototype. But I also knew all the people that I knew had went in Target had to repackage.
Right. Because it's very
Listen,
specific.
I can only do this once.
Right.
So
I'm glad I didn't have anything so I can get it right.
Right. So I can get it right. And
Wow.
so we can co-design the box and we can co-create that kind of thing.
I know they love that.
Well, I don't know if they knew all of that right at the time, but I think people overshare sometimes, and so we'll have it when it's time to ship. That's all you need to know.
Right.
And so we pitched them. We finally got to the toy buyer. We pitched them on a Friday. Had the team that was supporting me on the call, and when we got off, they were like, you did great, but you didn't really talk about the product. Now, I'm knowing
It ain't
there
no
is no
product.
product, right? So the reason
But
why
I sold you on the vision.
I sold you on the vision, the mission, who the audience is,
love that.
how it fits in with guest experience, all of that, right? Because I know that stuff.
Right.
I know that. But I didn't have a product. And so they're like, well, if you don't hear anything, you can pitch again, next cycle. Okay. It might be 7 to 8 weeks before you hear. That was on Friday. Monday, we get a call. And the buyer says, we want you in. Wow. I'm like, oh, great. How many stores? And they said full chain. Oh, which was every single one, right? And I'm like, first it's jubilation. And then it's, oh, shit, we don't have any money. Right? And so that...
Nor a product I had.
I feel like
you had some ideas.
I had ideas, and I had my toy designer on board.
Okay.
So, we'd been designing things. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like we were just making it all up, right? But we didn't have any... What we didn't have was money. And so and that just started us on that capital raising journey.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. That's my story. Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to get started?
So many things inspired me to get started, right? So I always talk about this mountaintop moment that I had. It was after my mom had died.
Okay.
And it was, I think I might have been fired from one of my jobs. Like, I'm a terrible employee. Like, I am a
know
terrible...
Thyself.
Know thyself.
Yes.
And I am a terrible employee. And I was executive at one of the largest global PR agency in the world, right? But I was hired to be a crisis management lead. But I turned to be the Black crisis management person. I was like, this sucks. This is not what I was hired to do, right? Like, don't deploy me every time there's somebody steps in it and says something, about Black folks. And so I think, and I was also going through a divorce during this time, right? And so I was a terrible employee because I was like resentful, and I was like, I don't want to be the one with the torch. I don't want to be token. I don't want to be any of those things. So I got fired. And so I was going around Stone Mountain where I work out, and I was really just kind of dragging myself around the mountain. And I was asking God, I'm like, there's got to be something else, right? What is my purpose in life? Like, I'm clearly, I'm not anybody's wife anymore. I'm not this, I'm not that. What am I? And what I heard was, look at your life. Right. And so I really just started thinking, and I'm a list maker. Anybody who comes to my office, they see like these big, huge Post-it notes. I'm a beautiful mind all day, like these big, huge notes all around my office, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And so that's what I do. And so I started writing it down and jotting. I mean, like it was almost obsessive about trying to figure out, okay, what does he mean, look at your life? Yeah. What does that mean? And I just started thinking about all the different things, right? I thought, of course, as me being a mom myself, what is it, that is the grounding thing in my life, right? Is me being a mother. Yep. And so I said, it's got to have something to do with that. It's got to have something to do, with me. I was really obsessed at that time, too. I was reading TechCrunch and Mashable about this leaky pipeline in STEM. And I was like, that sounds like some BS to me, but, it's not a talent issue. It's an access issue, right? And then I really started even thinking about earlier, when I was in college and the most pivotal thing happened was there was, I love, whenever somebody says that little boy is bad, I'm like, give him to me.
Oh, boy.
If the little girl is sassy, give her to me, right? Because I know I can. I love those kids. I love the challenge kids, right? But there was one when I was in college that they labeled as the bad kid, right? And so I worked at a rec center to pay for school. Unlike my child, I worked full time to pay for school.
But the goal is for us to do better, so they don't have to do what we did. That's what they say.
Amen.
Okay.
And so, but he used to always talk about bridges, right? Like I would spend all the time talking about bridges, all this kind of stuff with him. But I had to leave because, my classes weren't, I had to take a class that didn't work with that schedule. And so I gave him a book on bridges.
Oh, wow.
And so his mom was like, thank you. But, he's not really going to be building bridges, right? And I was like, why do you say that?
Wow.
Right? And she was like, how many ends do you know that build bridges? I was so mad. I was so angry with her at the time.
Yeah.
But the truth is, that was in 91, 92. It was like 2.6% civil engineers, Black. in 1964, it was like 2.1 civil engineers black.
Wow.
All that time it hadn't changed. To this date, it's less than 3%.
Wow.
Right? Black civil engineers. So she wasn't wrong.
Right.
But she was wrong because she
her
spoke
expectations, the data spoke to that, but
Right.
she didn't create opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you spoke death to your son.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
You spoke death to his dreams. Right? And so I thought about that. How many kids in my life had I experienced who had death spoken to their dreams, right? And so that's another reason why when I talk about getting the parents on board, it's so important so that they can see it and so they can speak life to their children's dreams, right?
Wow.
And so all those things started kind of coming at me. And I was, again, on my poster boards and writing lists and all that stuff. And I said, toys. Right? I was like, how do we change the trajectory of these kids' lives? How do we make sure that kids like him have life spoken to them and they have access and they have opportunities and they have all those things, and that we can shut these folks up about this leaky pipeline of STEM, and we can disrupt this, this abysmal projection, the projection for us for 2053, our network $0, right? Yep. How do we disrupt that, right? Because that's not about you and me. That's about our kids, that's right? And so toys came to me, but then I didn't know anything about toys. I was like, that's great, God, but what are we going to do? Right? So, but what I will say is, and this sounds real preachy and evangelist-like type, but I will say that I truly believe now at this point in my life that God will not give me the vision without the provision.
I like that.
And that every time my back is up against a wall, a door opens or a window opens or a crawl space opens and I'm going to climb myself through it and figure it out. I think the thing that inspired me was to live a more authentic life and to stop pretending so much, And so I was like, what would give me the opportunity to live my full self and be unapologetically Terri? Yeah. And this is what I came with.
What was the young man's name?
His name was Marcus.
Where's Marcus now?
So Marcus did 15 years in Nebraska State Penitentiary. So I don't know where he is now.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I bet you he thought about Bridges while he was in there, though.
I bet he thought about Bridges. And I bet his mom probably thought about, what if I had done something?
Right.
I hope she thought about, what if I had done this instead of that?
Yeah. What's your favorite game or toy that you've created?
The favorite. It's like, what's your favorite child?
Okay.
It just depends.
Okay. Pick the one that, I don't know, you created first as a top seller.
I think one of our newer ones is super cool. So Zoe, she represents zoology. And what I'm going to say, I'm just going to nerd out a little bit.
Okay.
But what's super cool about Zoe, so we do STEAM kits for each of the characters.
So she's a little black girl?
So all the characters are black.
Okay, gotcha.
They represent all areas of the black diaspora, right? So we created them through a global lens. So they are from every part of the world, right? And we have some Afro Latinos.
Okay.
We have one from Queensland, Australia. We've got some from Africa. We've got some from South America, and we've got, of course, some from the United States and Europe and everything. But Zoe's from Queensland, Australia.
Right.
And she's her specialty is zoology. That's her area of interest. And so her kit has they're identifying. Sounds so weird, but kids love it. We've the scat of each of the different animals. So they're tracing the animal migration patterns.
Wow.
They've got these little scat cards. They've got these little clay stamps for them to make the footprints. They've got a little charades of the different animals in there. It probably doesn't sound as great as it is, but it is
I'm excited personally.
fascinating
Wait a minute,
kit.
I'm ready.
I love it, right?
Wow.
And I want some little black kid at Thanksgiving, Christmas to be, when all the families gather to do you know about giraffe scat? Yeah. Or I can tell you about, we don't talk about that.
That's
right? We don't talk about that. And so we don't talk about, binary coding. And I'm trying to create kids that are the did you know kids, right? Yeah. The little annoying ones that got all the little fun facts. And
I got one of those.
Your ear. Those are the best kids
Do
ever.
you know why the clouds look that way? No. Did you know? that some animal in the sea. I was like, yeah, I don't know anything about that. Okay.
But isn't that great, though?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's
right?
exciting. Timing is sometimes off. It's extremely exciting. It's extremely exciting.
Right,
yes.
Because they're talking about things like you can see their little the cylinder.
The antenna just going. Yeah,
it's just going, and I love it.
So how long does it take to make that though? Like if you're not a zoo person,
yeah.
What's that process? How long does it take?
So we work with a curriculum developer.
Okay.
And I have an amazing toy designer.
Okay.
And I will have the meeting I'm like, okay, so this is what I want to do. And they'll tell me, it's probably on track with what they would do.
Possible. Okay.
Or well, what about this?
Yeah.
And then they'll present the ideas back to me. Well, I'll pick which ones we want to go in the STEAM kits.
Gotcha.
And then we go into production. Or, there's a process, but then we go into production.
Sure.
So it's a lengthy process. Ours is probably shorter than most toy companies. We're able to be more agile because we're so small.
Gotcha.
And because we didn't know what we were doing. There probably are some things that we should be doing in between. But I'm
it's done.
It's done. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Produce. Let's go.
Let's
right.
Go.
And so, I think it's usually about 9 months to a year.
Okay, birthing a baby. Okay.
Yeah. But what I hear is it's supposed to be 18 months or something.
So
but I just think there's a lot of inefficiencies that are built
Gotcha.
into some of those processes too, right?
Gotcha.
And so being the decider, I think I cut through a lot of some of those things.
Right.
So, but
Did Terry say it was good? Terry said it was good. Okay, it's good. Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
Right.
Let's go.
Right.
But we do test. Now, we do test. So that's one of the benefits also of having the school program is that we test with the schools. We test with the kids, the teachers, and parents. Right. Because those are the three that we need
No
to
need
get.
to do A/B testing on social media. Let's just take it to our audience.
Let's take it to our audience,
I love
right?
it. Yeah,
absolutely. Because what I find is, a lot of people say, yeah, I would love that. I would support that. I would. No,
they don't.
Right, they don't. So I want to see how toyetic it is. Is it very playable? Is it, do the parents, when they get down with their kids and they're doing it, does it look like they're having fun, And so those are all things that we're really looking for. And then, our job is to, then once we're in production, is to figure out what is the marketing of these products going to look like.
Gotcha. So it sounds like there's a team that you've put together. How hard was it to get that team together?
Do I have a team together?
That's a good question. No, I mean, it sounds like there's quite a team. Quite an effort to get these
Absolutely.
toys. I
actually love my team. Okay. I do love my team. I think again, we're all just figuring it out right now, and so I think the next thing that we have to do is really, we've already started putting in the processes, putting in some systems and all of those things. So that's really super important. But I think the hardest thing about this business has been the team, building the team. And I talked to other founders that have transitioned to CEOs, and that has been the struggle, right? And the people that helped you start are not necessarily the people that you continue on with,
Fair
right?
enough. Yeah.
And so there's been some transition there. But I think for me, it's I get it. No one's going to be quite as passionate as me because it's my baby, right? And it's my, this my big vision. But they got to be on board on this vision. They've got to be, they got to understand that we spell black with a capital B.
Right.
They got to understand that, we are unapologetic about who we're serving and how we're serving and why we're serving, right? And so my team is that. And so the other things, we can learn and they can learn as they go. I'm all about making mistakes. Just don't make the same mistake twice.
Gotcha.
Right?
I like that.
So that's
so if I were to walk in, what is the culture of your company look and feel like?
Yeah, so you walk into our office, a really warm, fun, friendly space. So lots of colors.
I'm thinking lots of toys all over.
Lots of toys. So we also use it kind of as a showroom.
Okay.
So people can come in and they can see exactly, because it's kind of hard to imagine sometimes, right? So they can come in and they can see the toys, but it's lots of colors, really our brand colors all over. But then you see my people, they're working, right? They're working and they're talking, and we've got music playing in there, and
a little mood.
We got a mood, right? And they get to pick which music we're listening to for the day. I said I was going to, my big Post-it paper. So we're right across from Georgia State University. And so I said, I want to put a big Post-it on the window that says Dance Challenge at 3:00. And then we'll see what kids are out there that want to dance, and then we'll dance. My team are like, we ain't doing that.
Right. Wait, why we got to dance?
Why we got to dance? But I just want it to be fun.
Did you do it?
No, because they don't want to do it with me. And I'm not a good dancer.
Okay.
You know that. I am not a good dancer.
No comment.
But I just thought it would be fun.
Right.
We're going to do that dance contest.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about that hiring process,
Yes.
what is the best lesson you learned that other founders and CEOs should know?
Don't hire your friends. Do not hire your friends. I lost a 20-year friendship just because our expectations weren't aligned. I was clear about my expectations, but I think a lot of times when people think of startup, they think it's going to be sexy and fun and it's all the things that they see on TV. Most of the time it's not,
it's
right?
Messy,
it's
right?
messy. It's long hours. It's hard, right? And so I think when particularly in this case, when my friend came on board, she thought it was going to be like, this glamorous thing.
Gotcha.
And
she was like, wait a minute, you want me to try to
want
read
me
these
to do what?
stickers? You want me to cut paper?
Right. You want me to be here sometimes on the weekend. You want me to sometimes, like the work is the work, right?
You want me to carry boxes in my car?
You want me to put boxes in my car, right? Or have to go do warehouse visits and that kind of stuff. And so one, I would say never hire your friend. Two, have very clear expectations. Document things, right? Yep. I don't believe in saying we are a family. Right. I think that's a way that two things happen with that. I think it's manipulative for a lot of employers when they're like, oh, it's this family. And then they want you to do a lot more and go above and beyond because you're supporting this family. But then I think it also allows employees to be lazy because they think, oh, well, we're family. And, she's like a mom to me. I'm not your mom. You're right. And so I think I want to have a really positive, good, fun, energetic, inspiring place to work. Yep. But I will fire you. Right. And I think that's important to be able to fire fast. Yep. I think otherwise it's cancer to your team.
So it sounds like you want to have fun, but there's some boundaries of accountability for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
How does that go over?
I think I'm clear, right? So, do
you write them down? Can people see them?
Yeah. Okay. We talk about it.
Okay.
We have weekly team meetings and we talk about, performance and we talk about, where we are with things and accountability and, we do a lot of big kudos to folks, right? Because it's got to be, I believe in sticking carrot. I'm old school, right? Yep. And so, but I want to do a lot more carrots, right? Gotcha. But there is accountability. Yeah. And
performance reviews,
right? Deadlines are deadlines for a reason. I think a lot of times people, even employees, they think of startup like Instagram, right? What they see on Instagram, right? And it's not that.
People dancing
around, never, we are in the office, so, that's a thing, right? We are, and here's the real truth. You can't do all the things that I do, right? And I think that's been a hard thing for people who, like the younger folks that want to do like what seems glamorous. And so
they're like, I want to sit there and talk about the scat. And you're like, hey, but you can't even spell it. You don't even know what we're trying to create.
Well, even like, traveling, right? When you're younger, you think it's really glamorous, but, it can be taxing. Right. It could be very, very taxing. Right. And I think they saw that we all went to a big toy trade show, which was amazing. Sure. I had to...
How many other Black people were there?
There was one other big exhibition booth. Wow. Right? And so, we ran into each other in the bathroom and talked for like 20 minutes. Wow. Right? It was great. But that's another moment where I take pause and I'm like, look at where you are. Right. Look at what you're doing. Right? But I think that my team was exhausted. Right, so
they thought like, oh, we going hang out, we go have dinner,
hang out. Exactly.
We'll talk to some people,
exactly.
And they didn't know like, no, you there before it opened, you're setting up the place,
yep. And your other work still has to happen, right? So when you leave the booth, you need to get online or do whatever else you need to do because you got to fill orders, you got to respond to this, you got to do that. And so I think it was good for them to travel. Yeah. I think it's also good, part of my work, part of my job, I think, is to not just create opportunities, but create experiences for my team, right? It's funny, and it made me laugh a little bit. Like I sent them their per diems, and they're like, "What is this?" All right, I'm like, "It's your," and it didn't dawn on me that they had never traveled, and so when I said, "It's your per diem," They're like, yeah, but what is that? Do you want me to go buy something? Do you want me to go? So I had to explain
so you
that.
Can eat,
right? So you can eat while you're here, right? And so it's those things to give these young Black folks these experiences.
Right.
It feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You said you started this and didn't really know, but you knew that there was a vision that you got on the mountain. Mm-hmm. So what's the end goal?
End goal is to be. I really hate when people say the Uber of, the this of, but I'm going to have to use it. The Disney. Be a Black Disney, right? There's so many opportunities for global expansion, for content, for the toys, for online games, for games, for all those things. It's a completely white space right now, right?
And the population's changing.
The population's
so a lot
changing.
more young people are people of color, and we want to see ourselves.
We want to see ourselves, right? And I think, but retailers are understanding that they've always had diverse customers, but never inclusive product offerings, right? And so we are filling that space. We're different in that we are educational toy focused, education focused, right? And so we're helping fill that space for our customers, our retail customers. But ultimately, as our core focus are Black children.
Yep.
There's a representation. I can't tell you how many times, like I did a Black and Brown founder funder event, and all the brown folks came up to me like, when are you going to do this for us?
Wow.
When are you? I mean, I always get that. When are you going to do this character? When are you going to do this for us? When are you? We have a new line called College Builds HBCU edition. They're like, what about the HSIs, the Hispanic serving institutions? I'm like, let me get my foot in, and it's funny because you end up being this thing for everyone, and it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Right. But the big goal is we want to take on everybody, right? I say all the time, we're not trying to get acquired.
Yep.
We're not trying to scale and sell. We're trying to be at the. We want to be that Milton Bradley.
Yeah.
And that doesn't.
But you got the name. You ready?
I'm already ready.
We're not related, but,
I'm already.
I know you more than I know Milton. So
there you go.
Here we go.
There you go. And you can say that we're related.
See?
So.
But when you talk about that, because when you first said that to me a while ago, I was like, wow, that's pretty powerful. But, when you think about an exit or wherever you want to be, you've got to reverse engineer that. So I want to talk about capital for a second because congratulations, you've been successful in raising capital. But unlike a lot of other founders, you're not out there trying to get a whole bunch of venture capital and all that kind of stuff. So talk a little about your fundraising journey and the intentionality behind that.
Yeah, so because, as I said, we're not trying to scale and sell. That means we had to be very intentional about how we brought people into our business.
And manage your cap table.
And manage our cap table, right? So right now, 100% ownership.
Love it.
We were able to raise through debt, right? I'm a firm believer in this. If you won't bet on yourself, why should anybody else, right? And I am so confident in what we're doing and how we're doing it and the partnerships we're building. We're going to get there, right? And so really, and this isn't because I'm talking to you,
right?
But there are 5 women that made this happen, right? If wasn't for Melissa Bradley, if it wasn't for Grace Fricks, if it wasn't for Latricia McHawthorne, if it wasn't for Dr. Eloise Clemente from Invest Atlanta, like there were women that were so intentional about the Vicky Saunders from SheEO, right?
Yes.
You all made, and I'm not unique, right? I had this product. I had POs in hand. I had all of this. And I could not get capitalized. And I know that happens to so many other Black founders, right? But I had 5 very intentional, badass women around me that made sure that I got the capital that I needed.
Yeah.
Now, I know that wouldn't happen if I didn't have POs in hand. You got to bring some to the table, right? So I had.
We do need to, at some point,
we got to know we got to get our money back, right?
Yes. But POs can still go sideways.
And
so I think there was a level of trust on both sides. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think also it came from, having a track record of at least solidifying my relationship, building relationships, and then just being who I say I'm going to be, doing what I say I'm going to do. And so we've had a very non-traditional, and I always think about like all of these announcements, like second black woman to get $1 million, 12th. And the fact that we're still counting and we haven't made it to 50 yet is crazy.
It's challenging, yes.
Right? And I'm like, well, we've gotten over $1 million, but it wasn't through VC.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it's a very unique way to build a business. But I think, and we will end up having to take in some equity, but we're going to make sure that cap table looks good, right? It's going to be relative, right? Because we need to be able to exit those investors and make sure that they see their upside and, and the investment. But still, at the end of the day, that's the goal is to create this, I know Sarah Blakely just sold to Blackstone, but what she did with Spanx, I use that as kind of, as my North Star.
You say debt, and most people go, I don't want to owe nobody. So how did you overcome that? Because I know a lot of black and brown folks who be like, that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to owe anybody anything. But that is the nature of
why,
the game.
Melissa? Help me understand that. I don't understand that thinking.
Well, I'll just speak for myself. I grew up where we had nothing. We were poor. And I watched my mom kind of, rob Peter to pay Paul. And it was just like, man, you can't ever get out of that. And I think in it as black people and our desire to be independent and say we got this, you lose some of that when you feel like you owe somebody.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying that's the historical burden that we carry, right? That we're tired of owing people.
Yeah,
right. We were chattel, we were slaves, we were always owing somebody. It's like you have to buy your life back. Well, that's just bullshit. So I'm not saying it's rational, but I think there's a weight that we carry of if I owe somebody something, then that's just going to mess up my ability to be free. And let's be honest, for a lot of time, we're still trying to be free.
This is absolutely true, but I think the opposite. I think it's we have made raising sound so sexy.
Yeah, it's not.
Right? We have made it sound like, I want to be the 38th black woman to get $1 million. And then I've got friends who have, like people, they've gotten $100,000 and given away 10% of their company.
Wow.
And I'm like, for $100,000?
Right.
Right. And so I get the not wanting to owe anybody, but what do you, and this isn't about, I just want to own 100% of my company. That's not it at all. Right. I would like to have folks in the business that can help me scale the business, that have not just the capital, but have the knowledge to help me to be able to grow the business, right? And understand the industry, have a Rolodex that they can use on our behalf, right? So I'm all about that. I believe that anybody who's in your business should see an upside to your business, right? But I do think that I don't think oftentimes, controversial statement, but we even understand raising capital.
Oh, no.
Right? And so we think, well, I just saw this, and this is what somebody else did.
We saw the white guy do it, and look at his success.
Right,
how do I get that?
And I want to be, and I love Jay-Z, and I quote Jay-Z all day. However, the whole, I have, 1% of a billion versus, that's a cute little tagline. But you're probably not going to have, let's look at what most companies do, right? It's not going to get to $1 billion. You're not going to be a unicorn, right?
That's right.
And so now you own 1% of $100,000.
Right. Which is more than you've put in blood, sweat, tears, time.
Right. Yeah. And so just think about when people are like trying to, when they're going after VC, what that really means. Yep. Have they thought about what their exit needs, what they want it to look like, right? So when I think of Tristan with Bevel, right? And so he came and we had like a little round table with him. And I asked him 2 questions. I was like, one, why did you position yourself as a tech company when you're clearly consumer product?
Yep.
He was like, that's the only place that was giving out money. Right.
And remember, he grew up in Silicon Valley.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. And so then he also said that he's like, people always like kind of give me a hard time about selling to P&G, but there was no way I was going to be able to pay that capital back. Right. So I had to sell it.
That's right.
Right. And so I don't think people think about that part.
Sure.
Like, you're getting $1 million, but you have to pay that back.
Well, most people don't think 3 to 5 years out to begin with, right?
Well, there's that.
Because as a founder, you're so busy with your head down, you're like, I can't even think that far. I'm just trying to make month to month, quarter to quarter.
Yeah.
So I think even your positioning of like, I'm standing on the mountain, this is my vision. And then instead of saying, okay, step by step by step, you're like, no, this is my end goal. Now how do I just reverse engineer to get there? And those are two, one's not necessarily bad or good, but they're very different approaches that lead you in different ways. And I also think the difference is, you didn't say it, but I felt it, which is you are very clear about your value and your worth.
Yeah.
And so you are very clear that if somebody gives you $1 million, that does not necessitate a 30 to 35% equity stake, because you know what the value of this company is. And I think that's really hard in this game of Black founders because people underestimate us, undervalue us. There's no precedent or proxy. And the few that have made it through, those are the exceptions.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
And I'm really curious, too. I mean, I would love to talk more to, and most of my friends are entrepreneurs, but it's very interesting because I'm wondering, and I love listening to B. Dixon talk all the time. She's
Honey
like,
pot.
listen,
She's killing it.
She said, I'm trying to sell this company. Right. And I appreciate that because she knows what she wants for her exit, right?
Right. Well, she's got all those investors. She really doesn't have much of a choice.
She doesn't have much of a choice, but she was but I think she took on all those investors because she was very clear what she wanted at the end, right?
Absolutely.
And for me, I'm the opposite, but I'm also very clear of what I want at the end. I just wish that as Black founders and CEOs, like we really thought about that before we take in a single dollar to our company, right? Because once you start,
it's hard to get off that rat race.
Right. Yeah, it's like the Godfather. Once you're in, you can't get out.
What is it? I had that whole Godfather image. What is it that you're most excited about right now?
I'm excited about a few things.
Okay.
Like we are kind of kicking ass in a couple different areas,
I know,
right?
that's right.
And we are doing things that, okay, let me say this. I get tired of the first Black woman to do this and I get so tired. I'm like, are we still doing that? We still counting? But we are trailblazing in a lot of areas that we're just not there. And so I'm excited, not because of the glory for me, but so I can go back and share the information with my people, right? Yeah. Hey, y'all, this is how this works. This is the game, right?
That's true, because I talked to Terry. She would tell me her story. I was like, that's why she ain't never sleeping, because she trying to run the business, then she trying to give y'all advice. Poor child. Okay, yes.
But it really is. It's like I think that is the requirement, right? Is that
paying it forward.
Pay it forward and share. I'm never one of those people like, well, I had to pay my student loan, so I don't want some. That's stupid to me. Like, come on. And keep calling me Great Lakes Borrowing because it's coming. So I think social entrepreneurship should be included in the student loan forgiveness.
I'm with you.
I'm gonna just say that. You. But I think what I'm most excited though about is we just got a new licensing deal with Nickelodeon, so we've got that going on. They're already talking to us about a second licensing.
I love
that. Like, let's get the first one done right. Like let's be decent.
But I appreciate
your
patience.
I appreciate and that.
Nickelodeon is a big ass company. How'd you get there, and what is this licensing deal?
So, one theme that you'll always hear from me is about relationships. The year before, I had joined Women in Toys.
Okay.
All right. And I serve on their executive DEI board. I do all those things. I talk to them about what it means to be Black, all the fun things, right? And so, but I made a really great relationship there. And she was leading consumer products for Nickelodeon.
Wow.
And so she'd asked me the year before about, let's work together. I really want to work together. I had no money. And I had no idea how to make a product.
Common theme, but shit happens. No money, but shit happens.
Exactly, but shit happens, right? So I said, this isn't a good time. I think sometimes you have to know when to say,
absolutely,
not no, but that's not right
key.
now.
That's right.
And so I passed on it, and then it came. So she came back to us this time last year actually, and she was like, I want you to work on our Blaze property. So Blaze is their hottest preschool property.
Wow.
Right? It's all about monster trucks, but it's also all about STEM. Right? They're like, we think you're the best at doing that for us. So they do a lot of collaborations with toy companies. Okay. And so, for example, Melissa and Doug, they do a collaboration with Blue's Clues, right? So when you go into Target and you see their stuff, it's like very clearly Melissa and Doug, because they do wooden toys, and it's very clearly Blue's Clues. Yeah. So for us, it's like, well, what's going to be our very clearly brown toy box? Because all we had were a few Steam kits in Target at this, and we didn't have that at that point.
Wow.
And so we're going to do Steam kits for them around their Blaze property.
Wow.
So just like ours, we'll have a book in there, with the activities, and then they'll have like some hands-on play that are all based on learning. So we'll be talking about velocity, we'll be talking about torque and all those different things. And in our books, in our Steam kits, we always have like, two Black trailblazers in that. Okay. So of course, one of each is going to be that we put in there are going to be Black.
Right. I love that.
I don't know if they've approved that yet, but
I'm putting it out there.
We're putting it out there. Why would they not? Right. And so, so we were able to secure licensing with Nickelodeon to do their Blaze property, and it's such a big compliment, right? Yeah. Because one, We've never done a licensing deal before, right? And so we're learning on the fly. They've made some really, they've got some supplier diversity goals that they've got to hit, and that they're really committed to.
That's good.
And I appreciate that them helping us along, like, 'cause they know this is our first one, right? So they've been helping us along, but that they put their biggest preschool property in our hands.
I love that.
Right? And so that's super, super cool. And so we're going to, knock it out the park.
I love kudos. That's big time.
Thank you.
Big time.
We've got that going on. We've got the new College Builds product line coming out, which is going to be amazing. And so we've just got so much amazing things happening for us, and it's just making sure that we meet the moment, right? And that I don't say yes to everything, but the things I say yes to, I want to do it really, really well.
Sure.
And so I'm excited about the quality of the new products. Like when we first launched, so we're just on our 1-year anniversary as being a toy company. 1 year, right?
Wait, let me just wait. 1 year, and you already worked with Nickelodeon and selling and Target and all that. Okay.
I mean, we got to work, right? And so, but the first line of toys, if I'm going to be 100% honest, weren't the best to me. Right. And of course, you're going to always be your harshest critic. But
that's good to share.
There were some quality issues. So the beauty of it was our first at bat, we got a national deal with Target. The curse of it was our first at bat, we got a national deal with Target. That's right. And so you would usually be able to make, tweaks and fix things and do those
But that's a margin business.
Yeah. And our first at bat, if there were some things that weren't great, it was on a national stage.
That's right.
Right. And so now I'm excited that we have an opportunity to show the new things. And we're just going to keep getting better and better and better. I'm never one that believes that we need to wait until it's perfect.
Sure.
I know as women, we do that all the time. We're like, we're going to wait and I'm going to just keep testing. Testing. Girl, you're going to test yourself back into a full-time job.
That's right.
And so, I'm like, I'm going to just
got to do it.
Do it. Yeah. And, and I don't really read anything on social media. And that's not because in the dark, it's just not my thing. I'm not I'll post and go.
Right.
So if someone says something mean to me, I would never know.
Gotcha. That's good though.
And
avoid
then
the distraction.
And I've got people around that'll say,
Gotcha.
"Hey, we need to look at this or look at that." But I don't, really engage in social media in that way. And so I kind of have a thick skin because of being so broken and coming back and all of that. And so, I'm like, I would rather test. I would rather fail. I'd rather do all those things than not try.
Yeah.
So,
Tell me about the College Build program.
It's so cool.
You're excited about it, so I want to be excited.
Yes. So we have licenses for...
First of all, I just want to acknowledge, you're doing from, elementary school now all the way to college.
Well, no. So these are still for...
okay.
These are for elementary, for 8 to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
So these are replicas of college campuses. So it's called College Builds. And we're starting with the library of each campus, right? So we have the license with Howard.
Nobody ever thinks about the libraries.
Right. But because they're universal. They're all the same.
Yeah.
They're same, and there's one on every campus. And of course, there's a stadium, but we're talking about education. So why would we start with the stadium?
I love it.
Right. And so they're constructor kits, right? So they are. We have 7 licenses. So again, our second license that we have. So we've got licenses for Howard and Jackson State and some of the others, right? And so we are building those. We're building their campuses. The kids get to build their campuses. Wow. They've got architect notebooks and drafting, so all the things a junior architect would need, right?
Wow.
And they're just really, really cool. And depending on what the actual library on the campus looks like, that is the intricacy of the build, right? And so it's just really cool. And then to get HBCU alums' reaction when they see it.
Sure.
HBCU alums are they're a little crazy. I love them. They're all my people. I love them. But they are fanatical about their universities.
That
right?
is true.
And when I say crazy,
true.
I mean and I love it, right? And so
they're all in.
And when I talk to our COO, who is a white man, and I talk to him about HBC, he's like, "Yeah, it's very, very niche." I'm like, "You have no idea what you do not know.
You got that right.
How fanatical and how
and competitive.
And how supportive, folks that are about their university.
The fastest selling line of polo clothes was when the Morehouse Spelman collaboration came out. Those things were gone in less than an hour.
Exactly.
You know what hit them.
Exactly. And the funny thing about that is it's not all just Morehouse, Spelman,
That's
Gratz.
right.
It's like
That's
folks
right.
that
Jackson
love
State.
HBC,
Yep.
all of it, right?
Yep.
And so all of it. And so I think I'm really excited about
Okay.
that one.
I may want
right?
to get this myself.
You know,
Okay.
and it's a way to, again, put Black culture center stage in a way that hasn't been done.
But also change the perception, right? Because I think it was so funny. I was watching School Days with my kids, and they were
talking
like, well,
about good and bad.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that and the step shows. And so what a great way to say, yes, HBCUs are known for their social work, their social activities. But there's also academic excellence that has come out of Tuskegee and the A&Ts. And so let's start with the library.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And what I think it also does is it helps kids to be able, like, so you've got this constructor kit, right? And you've got the campus, and we'll add on additional bills for the low price of whatever, right?
I like that.
So we'll be able to add on to those. But it's planting seeds for those kids, right?
That's right.
Like this
Wanting
is a
to go to
campus.
college.
Wanting to go
and
to
then
college.
B, go to an HBCU. Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is happening now. I mean,
right.
the number
Absolutely.
of kids, major athletes.
Absolutely.
Are
selecting HBCUs. Well, college enrollment is going down in a lot of other places. HBCUs is up.
It's up.
So, you know, I just dropped my baby off to an HBCU.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah,
that's
and
exciting.
and actually that school is one of the builds that we're doing.
Wow.
Which we'd already obviously done the build before
Gotcha.
she had selected the school, but I'm super excited. So North Carolina A&T is on that list.
All
as well.
right now, the A&Ts.
Yes.
You call yourself a social entrepreneur. So I teach that class. Many people, I always have to say, social entrepreneurship does not equal nonprofit.
Right.
What does social entrepreneur mean to you?
I'm using business for good. Using business to change the world.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what it is for me. It's like, you know, I do not think that revenue and good have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Right. The only way that we can have sustainable growth and impact is if we make money.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. In a capitalist society, kind of have to make some money.
They have to make money. So the only way I can put people to work on this part of the business and the other part of, you know, creating the impact through the toys and the things that we're making is if we create a sustainable business. So we can be here, right?
Yeah.
We can talk all we want to, but if we don't make enough money, then we go away, right? And so we're not able to make that impact. So I think a lot of times there's this misnomer like it's got to be either or.
Yeah.
And it's both and.
Yeah. But I also like the fact that you are very clear the change you want to create is disrupting poverty and creating intergenerational wealth, which is a long game.
It's a long game.
So you can't be in and out in 3 to 5 years with some venture capitalist having an exit.
Absolutely.
So I like the correlation from like mission, the change you want to see. What has been the biggest change this business has had on you personally?
Gosh, I think it has built my confidence. It has built my fearlessness. Like and let me qualify that.
As far as I know, you were always that way, but I hear you.
But also qualify that I'll be scared. I'm gonna just do it anyway.
Sure.
Right. Like I'm scared. This might.
Well, fearless doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you're gonna do it anyway.
Right. I'm gonna do it anyway. Right. And so, like I might fail, but I'm gonna have a good time.
That's right.
I'm gonna have a good story.
Right.
Right. And so, but I think it's changed me in that. I'm just so driven. Besides my kids, there was nothing in my life that I was so driven about, right? You know, like I was like, I'm going to raise good people.
Yep.
You know, rebellion was not tolerated in my house. But I'm gonna have I'm gonna raise really good people, and so that was my passion, right? I was a parent first, and and then it's the business. Now, what I will say is, I have, put myself on the back burner for both, right? And so now, as I just turned 49 last month, and I'm looking at 50, I'm like, what do I do for myself now?
Yes.
Right? So, you have given all of yourself to this business, and you will continue to pour into this business, but then what is that mix of how do you put yourself back on the priority list? And so, I went on Amazon and I ordered a couple books because I used to love to read, and I haven't done recreational reading in forever.
Okay.
And so I'm going to say, let me start with just reading. I think sometimes we think it's got to be these huge, big things.
We have to have a spa day.
Yeah, I'm like, come on. And I don't want to talk about how all that whole self-care just feeds into capitalism. I'm not going to talk about that, right? Like, this whole self-care stuff. I'm like, that's a movement. It's kind of like, it's like Valentine's Day, right? Like, that's a money-making movement. Like, we're all going to spas now. We're all doing, get out of here with that. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to sit on my front porch on my swing and read a book.
What's the book you're reading now?
The Violin Conspiracy. So I'm only 40 pages in.
Okay.
But I follow this platform, and she only talks about Black literature. And so she was kind of like really excited about this book. And I was like, well, if she's excited, I want to read it too. And so about 40 pages in, which requires that at night I take my laptop out of my bed and I actually set it down and I read my book.
Laptop should never be in your bed.
Well,
Okay.
My laptop has, I call it the guest side of my bed. And so
okay, here we go.
And so that's where it sleeps right now. But I've gotten better about taking it out and putting it in the chair next to my bed.
Okay, progress.
Yeah, it's in the room, but it's in the chair next to my bed.
Okay, I look forward to being not in the room.
Right,
Okay.
me too, one day.
Okay. I am honored that you joined me for this conversation. Every time I see you, you are happy and excited. So I am excited for you and for Brown Toy Box. Thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much, Melissa. Love you.
You
Yay.
too.
Thank you.